Hello, everybody, and welcome to Machtails from the Cantina Live, episode 9. Tyler?
Cheers, Boyle.
Cheers, man. Cheers, Boyle. Choo-choo, we are live. Woo! We have an audience tonight. We have not had an live audience since my birthday, which was May. But we were at the toy show today. I spent a shit ton of money. I want to show how much money you spent today, man.
I spent around 180. I want to say
180.
That was an easy 180.
I was going to say that was beyond my original budget.
Yeah.
One thing that I bought today that I was eyeing was a vintage snow speeder. The box is in pretty good shape, except it's a little warped. I don't know if you can even tell. Can't even tell. I mean, look at the sides, man. Still got the POP in there. I mean, it's got the inserts in there. My wife doesn't watch the show anyway. I spent almost $400 on the show. And then one of the things that I got today too was I got a Princess Leia, and I opened a lot of my stuff, and I collect a lot of the 12-inch figures, but it's a Slave Leia with an R2-D2 bartender.
Oh, nice.
You can't get any better than that. You got the booze and the sex all in one box right there. So I bought some Rogue One stuff. But how did it feel? I was wiped out at the toy show. How about you, man?
I just kept trying to pace myself the whole time. I kept looking for that big ticket item I wanted to buy, but there was nothing that really sold me. So I just ended up with a bunch of little stuff that I really wanted along the way.
So you spent $180. You got a bunch of little stuff. How much stuff did you get?
I probably got like 10 figures at least. Some carded, some open. But
yeah, it's a good time. It was a good show today. The weather sucked. The weather sucked, but we were sheltered for the most part.
Yeah, everything was sheltered. The outdoor stuff, those guys were risky,
Well, the outdoor stuff. Now, if you go to the Kane County Toy, if you have not been to the Kane County Toy Show, you have to go. The next show is going to be. There's 3 shows next year.
That's weird.
Which is cool. Yeah, they used to do 3 shows. They stopped doing 3 shows for a while. The next show is April 24th. This has been going on for it's been going on for at least 30 years. At least 30 years, maybe longer. Back when I was going to the toy show for the first time, it was not sheltered. And it was a lot of rain, a lot of mud, a lot of dust. But I tell and I share a lot of my collection on Mocktails from the Cantina, the Patreon page. So if you guys want to know more about Star Wars stuff that surrounds me, I should not have bought anything today, but I did. He's my Chewie tonight, man. He's my Chewie. Now Gunner didn't show up tonight. Gunner's my live guy. He's got the right gear to do the live show. So we're sharing a microphone just like we did, boyos, up in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Cubbies Brewers game when we did our first live show from the road. Now I got the villain tin. This is the drinking word of the night. Tyler, I'm going to have you do the honor. And every time you hear this word, drink with us. Friends. Friends. It is friends.
Tell me if you can read that.
That is chicken scratch. Now, I do have a prize for the Patreon members. I'm giving away a very cool Halloween item, and it is not in the hero tin tonight. It is in the Darth Vader treat bucket that I bought at Target probably 15 years ago. Nice. I'll be pulling it at the end of the show. But tonight we are talking about the Force Within Us. The last live show we did was about the Force Among Us. 15 years ago, we started filming the first documentary. It was 9 years ago that we started filming that film. And actually, the funny thing is, we've been doing a lot of baseball postseason chats. We're wrapping that up tonight at 6:30 Central Time. We're doing a double dip tonight. But 9 years ago, the Rays were not in the postseason 9 years ago, so it freed me up with time, and I was able to focus on the Force Within Us, and I started editing that project pretty much 9 years ago. Today, Tyler is going to take a deep dive. He knows that I don't like to interview myself.
No.
So I said, Tyler, I want to get some deep questions about this film that we did 9 years ago, and I'm interested to hear what you had dug up because you found out about that documentary kind of late.
I found out about it when you were first interviewed on Rebel Force Radio, and not your first time on Rebel Force Radio, but my first time hearing you, and I went back and I watched, and I was like, wow, this is great. And I watched Force Among Us, and there's just such a huge difference between the two in my eyes.
No, there is. Even as a filmmaker, to me, there's a huge difference.
Yeah, one of the things that really stuck out with me is the Force Within Us has a lot more star power than the Force Among Us. You interview Ashley Eckstein. You interview Steven Sansweet.
Well, no, Rich
Brendel.
Yeah, we got Rich Brendel getting the tattoo. No, it's funny. Yeah, we do have a lot of star power. Rich, it's funny. You drove out from St. Louis that morning to the premiere, which was down the street from my house, and you drove back that night.
Yeah.
Drove back that night.
And that was in the movie.
And he was in the movie for 2 minutes, two seconds.
I had some lines. I love it.
I love it. Yes, that was Rich's famous lines where I love it. But so, yes, there was a lot of star power in that.
What changed over the? I can't even remember how many years it was in between. Was it 5 years? Was it?
Well, you're the accountant, so you can do the math here. And I know you're not working tonight. You're working for free tonight, I should say. But it was several years. It was from the Force Among Us was released in August of 2007, and the Force Within Us was not released until March or April. I want to say April, or the end of March of 2013. So 2013 minus 2007, that's a handful of years.
Yeah, it's about 5 years.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that's 6 years, right?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
That's how I do my math. I gotta use my fingers.
But what changed over that course of time that allowed you to get this star power? Like how do you get Ashley Eckstein going from Angry Mike to Ashley Eckstein? That's a big jump.
It is. And
what changed in your life? That's
I would say, a lot of things changed in my life between when I made the first film and when I made the second film. But I think when I made the second film, I'm like, we stayed away from the star power in the first film. Like Dan Madsen was the star power, right?
Yeah.
And when we did the second one, I'm like, well, why not incorporate the stars? Because I don't know if we talked about this last time, but my sister, Courtney, was the one that wanted to stay away from the star power.
Okay.
In the first one. And, I made this one without her. And I'm like, you know what? Let's start asking people. And Dan Madsen was the one that hooked me up with Ashley. And, he's very, very close with her. He was part of her universe in the early stages. And it was easy. Actually, Ashley Eckstein was late. She was late for the interview, and she was so apologetic. She was so kind. She was so nice. And then we got Robert Watts, Steven Sansweet, Jeremy Bullock, Dave Dorman.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I wanted to have star power that I was connected to.
Okay.
Not that I'm connected to the Clone Wars, but me and Dan had a great relationship. He's like, hey, you should talk to Ashley.
Yeah.
And it might have been his original idea.
Yeah, okay.
Like you should talk to her kind of thing.
She's been so open with the fans. I can understand.
Oh, she's been great. She's been so great with the fans.
Best in
Like if you don't like the Clone Wars, how can you not like the Clone Wars if you met Ashley Eckstein?
Exactly.
But I think that's, what it was. The star power was, I think a lot of people had heard about the Force Among Us.
Yeah.
And I think because we promoted that film for so long and it was a hit with the fans, the people that gave us the time, one, they're gracious with their time.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we want to talk to the fans. And two, they were familiar with what we did. So it was kind of like two things working for us at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought up Dave Dorman, who's, such a great artist and he's a great fan ambassador himself. Why you spent so much time in the edit with Dave Dorman, and what was it like? Why did you spend that much time with him? And what was it like to go to his house personally. That's a personal atmosphere.
What-
And
yeah.
talk to him and experience that atmosphere. What was?
Well, Dave lived in St. Charles. That's where I reside now, and he's a local boy. Like Bodie Rook, according to Saw Gerrera. And I just Dave Dorman was such a big part, like Stephen Sansweet, in the early days of my fandom, rediscovery, 92, 93. You guys have heard about this a gazillion times.
Yeah.
But it was so important to talk to the people that were part of my story, because when I made the first documentary, it was more of a thing like I just wanted to tell my story.
Yeah.
Because I didn't tell my story in the first one.
Yeah.
So going to Dave's house, Dave's in the shower. And he's like, "Hey man, the door's unlocked, come on in." And I'm like, "Wow, this is like me and David kind of met before, but I'm like, his hair was still wet. He's like, "Hey, I'm just finishing up." And so it was like when I met Dave and I went into his house, it was a very, very personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was full circle for me, because if it wasn't for Dark Horse Comics and it wasn't for Steve Sansweet's book that came out, that would have not have fueled the fire. Like those two things really were gasoline on the Star Wars fandom fire that was kind of sleeping for all the time.
Yeah, and I know you have a ton of prints, especially in your staircase here, but do you have any Dave Dorman?
Yes, Dave Dorman's prints are actually up in the laundry room. My laundry room is on the top floor, and Dave, when we were on WGN Morning News, Dave's like, "Hey, I'm going to give you these prints, put them behind you, and you can keep them."
Wow.
So Dave was really gracious with his time, and I do have I've been collecting Dave's stuff for quite a long time.
Yeah. And I guess before we really get into the nitty gritty stuff, just why make a sequel movie? What really motivated you? What's the inspiration for creating The Force Within Us, and what do you think is the main difference? But there's the title, right? The Force Among Us, The Force Within Us.
Yeah. Well, I think
what's the story there?
Well, I think the Force Among Us was just this diversity of all these different fans, and the Force within us, like inside our soul.
Mm-hmm.
It was a much deeper and personal journey,
Yeah.
I guess, if that's the way I want to put it. Why a sequel? Because the first time that I thought of doing a second documentary, I was on the glacier in Norway with Frankie Ario, and I said, "Hey man, just keep that camera rolling." Not only because the trip cost us $10,000 out of our own pocket, and the second film had a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah.
The first one did not. So I told Frank, I said, "I might make another documentary," and I was you guys know, I was unhappy with the first one because it was my first film. Frankie and Freddie did the edit. It was 5 or 6 years of promoting this film at conventions and watching it on the screen when we were selling the DVD and listening to it and just hating it and disliking it more and more and more, and going, "Man, if I had a second chance." Kind of like, I've been happily married now for 13 years.
Yeah.
I was, miserably divorced, years ago. So when you get a second chance, I just thought, this is what I'm going to do right.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to do it over.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had said that they knew my story from interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, why don't I tell the story about why I love Star Wars? And that's really how it came to be. It kind of came to be from a missed opportunity in the first one. It came to be because I had this story that wasn't told yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like a lead, like you hinted at it so much. In The Force Among Us.
Yes, exactly. That is a good way to put it. Not the weed we smoke, but the weed in our backyards. It was kind of one of those weeds, and it just grew. And I can't tell. Like, I can still feel the, I don't know if it's anger, but the disappointment and the frustration of hearing and playing the film for people. And The Force Among Us sold double.
Yeah.
Than the second one.
Really?
But
Yeah.
the Force Within us, it's got SCX, like you said, it's got the star power. It's just a better film. Out of everything that I've done, it's my favorite. And I don't want to sound narcissistic, but it was one of those things where my story, people loved hearing me on Rebel Force Radio, theforce.net, promoting the first film. And I'm like, you know what? This is how the film's got to be. And Ian Basic, who unfortunately is not joining us tonight, very much like Gunnar Malmstrom. I got to throw Gunnar under the bus again. Ian was kind of the guy. He was a friend of mine from childhood. We reconnected years later, and he was the guy that was like, hey, I kind of get an idea of where you want to go with this.
Yeah.
So he helped me put it on track,
Yeah, and I mean, you had Frank for the first one, and Frank is, very, very. You look at his IMDb page, and it just goes down.
Yeah.
He's a pro, real pro.
He's a pro, and Frankie's a pro. Ian is a pro. Ian's a cameraman.
Yeah.
Frankie is more of a production guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you see the difference.
It's definitely in the tech.
In the quality.
Yeah.
I think because Ian, they call Ian the tech Buddha for a reason,
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, me and Ian reconnected when I wanted to do the second film. So Frankie went to Hollywood, just like the '80s song. He really did. And Frank, so after I got divorced, Frank's like, you know what? I'll do another documentary with you. And we just talked about it, but we didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, hey, I'm moving out to Hollywood. I guess we're not going to do the film. So I reached out to Mike McGrath, the sound guy from The Force Among Us. And he put me in touch, very much the same. It was the same story as The Force Among Us. He put me in touch with the filmmaker, and the filmmaker's like, hey, it's going to cost you $20,000. And then Ian went to go see me at the Montrose Room. That's a music venue I booked. And I said, Ian, you're in the movie business?
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to make a movie. And he goes, well, let's do it. So it was weird. Talk about the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
It was being in the right place at the right time with the right people.
And was the process different between Frank's process and Ian's process, or your process at the time and now?
Yes.
After...
It was a lot different because, well, one, I'm working with my childhood friend. Yeah. And we're looking at, the movie starts really with a lot of old 8mm footage from my childhood. I always say that if my dad would have never died, I would have never needed Star Wars as the Band-Aid, the vice, the drug, the healing process, and that's really how the film starts. And I got to answer that. I will finish answering your question, but one thing that's very important.
Well, yeah.
I went over to Jimmy Mac's house, and Wendy and Jimmy and Jimmy's neighbor are sitting there. And Jimmy's neighbor writes like Bruce Lee books.
You're talking about John Marcoux.
Probably. Yeah. Probably. So it's me, Jimmy, John, and Wendy.
Yeah.
And I'm nervous as shit. Mm-hmm. And they see the film, The Rough Cut, for the first time.
Yeah.
And at the end of the film, it was either Jimmy or Wendy.
Yeah.
One of those two. Or maybe it was John. Somebody in the room said, you know what? The film ends with you finding peace about your father. The film has to start about your dad leaving your life and becoming connected to Star Wars. So they were kind of very helpful.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing they said. They said, we love the fucking rough cut.
Yeah.
But you got to have the ending and the middle and the beginning all tie in.
I'm trying to guess as who that could be. It could be Jimmy or Wendy.
Yeah, or John.
John is one of the smartest guys I've ever heard talk.
I know it was weird. It was almost like a meeting where I met with these guys and I was expecting like mass criticism.
Yeah.
And they're like, that was great, but you got to start with your dad dying in the first part of the film. Mm-hmm. But the filmmaking process was a lot easier because, 6 years of frustration doing the first one and then working with my childhood friend.
Yeah.
It was kind of easy.
Yeah. And
it was easy,
Did you have any specific memories about filming with Ian? I mean, you guys, one thing I wondered when I was watching this is, did he make this movie so that he could go to Arizona and California and get that experience and film it? And it's much more planned out. or like, I mean, what specific stories do you have with going with your childhood friend across country to go film this stuff?
Well,
Because-
I think, one thing that was nice was that Ian was giving me the opportunity that Frank did.
Yeah.
And me and Ian had lost a lot of time in between. So going with Ian out there, we were really kind of catching up. But it was almost like, because we were childhood friends, and he knew that I lost my dad at a young age, it was one of those things where the comfort level was so great because he had already known me from these
Yeah.
early days.
I just gotta say, can I get this photo somewhere? Can I get this on a shirt?
Oh, you can. Yes, you can. You can. Actually, it's funny. But
It's
now
ridiculous.
Ian is going to do a photo reenactment of my daughter Danielle like this.
Really?
And then I want to do a family shot of us all wearing vintage iron-ons. That's my first grade photo. I'm wearing a Millennium Falcon iron-on shirt there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that the process overall was, easier. And
Yeah.
the guys we just talked to Sheldon Norton pregame. Sheldon's been in the business for a long time. Sheldon gave me the greatest compliment ever. He's like, dude, you made a film. You made a film. And then Frankie did the first one because he wanted to make a film.
Mhm.
I think, to answer your question a little bit more,
Yeah.
Ian wanted that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because everybody in the film business doesn't make their own shit.
No.
They work for big corporate clients.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I met Ian's bosses because
Okay.
they own the gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have this business. They still do camera originals. I did the Barstool Sports gig with those guys at Soldier Field. And they were like, yeah, we've heard of Frankie Ario. And they're like, you've made a movie before? They're like, then you know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
So they
you've
were
been
like,
through it.
so it's so cool that when you're an independent filmmaker and you're with these people that do it for a living,
Yeah.
they want to give you the opportunity because that opportunity apparently doesn't happen that much,
No.
because
Yeah.
you're busy working,
Yeah, you're just trying to make it day to day.
Yeah, you're making it day to day.
what's
You're
the
like,
next
okay,
gig?
what's the next paid gig? What's the next paid gig kind of thing? And these guys were like, Ian, you take it,
Yeah.
and they're like, when's the next one coming out?
Yeah, and I just want to say, hey, Chip, it's good to see you, bud.
Hey, Chip, thanks for tuning in, man.
Yeah, and just another quick question. I know I have a decent amount of questions about the Redwood Forest, meeting all those people in California, bringing your wife with you too, which I think
Yes,
that's not something that you've done before.
No, because my when I made the first film, my ex-wife didn't go anywhere with me. She,
but what was that? What was that process like? Did you email people, be like, hey, I'm coming to town? Would you be willing to sit down? Did you walk into the local bar and you're like, hey, who's here?
Well, going to, and I wish that I had it timed up with footage right now from Northern California, but I put together this slideshow and it's all wonky with the time. But yes, going to California was very, very strange because I have the passion for it. I'm like, I got to do the homework. And I started reading about all these people, interviews and such with people from Northern California, and the film commission in the town, in the county.
Yeah,
they reached out to me.
I saw you gave them a thanks or credit.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I saw that.
Oh, you did
did
your
my
homework. So they reached out to me and they said, hey, if you film here, you got to let us know. And you got to put us in the credits.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, yeah, well, we will do that, no problem. So I started reaching out to all these people in Northern California. We interviewed Harrison Ford's stand-in.
Yeah.
That's a good story that I would love to get into, actually.
Yeah, he doesn't look anything like Harrison Ford to me, but I mean, maybe from far away.
His height.
That's what he said. The height.
Yeah, his height. Yeah, because even in the film, he's like, I don't look anything like Harrison Ford. So I reached out to all these guys. One guy flaked on me. One of the guys was boyfriend with Debbie, the late, great Debbie Lee Carrington, who was an Ewok in Return of the Jedi. You know what? I'm gonna play these shows. I'm gonna let this roll. So Debbie Lee Carrington was once a girlfriend of Bobby Eslick, who was a stormtrooper. And I reached out to all these people. One guy refused. You know, it's funny. It's kind of like the Force Among Us.
He refused.
Yeah, he got really fucking weird. He's like, "Who are you? Who are you?"
Yeah,
I don't know. You know, when I made the Force Among Us, and you want to interview people, people always give you like the stink eye. They're like, "What are you doing? What's your intention?
Yeah.
What are you gonna show me as?" I did get that in the Force Within Us with the people from Northern California.
Okay.
Now, the people from Northern California, they were great. I would want to say that it's a very, very different lifestyle up there. They're more mountain people.
Okay.
So think the Northern Hillbillies.
Yeah.
You know, in a positive
There's
way.
moonshine and
There's
other things
moonshine.
involved.
There's some shady shit going on up there. The government's not really active up there.
Paul Bateman, of course. We didn't mention him with star power.
Yeah,
But,
Paul.
yeah.
And Paul I met promoting the first film, you know, and again, I wanted to get a lot of people that I met over Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because it's the Force Within Us. But we filmed at the Ship Ashore.
Okay.
So the Ship Ashore is the original hotel where the film crew stayed at.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the Norway Hotel.
Okay.
It's the same concept.
Yeah. Same hotel.
It's Jedi. Yeah. And so I'm up there and we're talking to the bartender. And I'm like, he's saying some great stories.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Carrie did coke over there. Harrison Ford was doing this over there, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, do you mind if we interview you? He said, absolutely not. This guy was in hiding up there. And the funny thing is, we did all the interviews at the Ship Ashore. Yeah. And that wasn't the plan. The plan was to film everybody outside.
Okay.
But it rained.
Oh, really?
It rained outside. And we filmed Michael Brown, who I should have asked Michael to join us on the show tonight. I'm sure he would have joined, but he's an old school guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's familiar with all the technology out there, but Michael Brown he did his interview in the rain, and then I'm like, you know what? We got to go film this shit at the Ship Ashore. And that was like happening right then and there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, my plan to film everybody outside in the forest just went to shit.
Yeah.
So I made an executive decision, kind of like your starting pitcher, you know, crappy in the second inning, and you're like, I got to go to the bullpen.
Yeah.
I had to go to the bullpen, and the bullpen was going to the Ship Ashore, and it turned out great. It
turned out amazing.
But all the interviews, man, all the interviews, they just flipped. And now Joe Gillespie. Yeah. He's related to Bobby Eslick. They're like, I don't know. I get a feeling a lot of those people are related up there. So Joe, the stand-in from Harrison Ford, he's sitting there going, you know, I'm getting a little anxious because you told me you were going to interview me now, and it's like an hour. So I just said, I got an open tab. Keep that. Just keep ordering yourself a beer.
Yeah, we'll keep you entertained.
Yeah. So he was a little aggravated with the whole time. I don't think I've ever shared this story before, but a good drinking story. And I sat down with him. We have a beer in the documentary, and talking about being nervous that you kind of pissed off. Yeah. The local guy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but it worked out, man. It worked out.
Yeah, and I think one of the scenes you did get outside was with the seamstress of the Blue Harvest jackets.
Yes.
Which is great. That is such a good scene. I think everyone should go out and watch it routinely, you know. She talks about so much stuff. But she tells this story about the Ewoks and how lively they were, the actors, and how they had this water balloon fight. But I did my own other research when I've read Warwick Davis's novel Size Matters Not, and he tells the story a little bit different about this water balloon fight that they had.
Oh, okay. It's in his book?
Yeah. She's like, oh, they had a water balloon fight. What he says is they got in the Ewok costumes. They got the water balloons and they threw it at the rest of the cast and crew, and then the rest of the cast and crew tried to throw it at them. They said, no, we're in costume. You can't throw the water at us.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So when I saw that again, I was like, wow.
So wait. Okay, so you heard about the water balloon fight in The Force Within Us, but then you read Warwick Davis's book?
Yeah, and
and he talks about the water balloon fight in there.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Again, that just proves the authenticity
Yeah.
from these. You didn't hear that side of the story, but
They're both talking about it. So
yeah,
it was one of those moments. I was like, whoa.
you know what? It's weird. So like, what is a Ewok balloon fight have to do with with my story, losing my dad as a kid? But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I got to tell you, the film set me off on a journey,
Mm-hmm.
and I end up out in Northern California towards the end of the film, and it was just one of those things where, you know, Star Wars was still giving back to me
Yeah.
as an experience level.
Yeah.
Like filming this movie was, I talk about night and day. I mean, this to me, this is magical. To me, this was a magical film.
It definitely tells your story a bit more.
When I make the third film, the
Yeah.
third documentary, it's not going to be as good as this one.
Yeah. And I mean, what would, I guess one thing I thought of was when you're filming this movie, you know, what does this movie look like without the death of your father? You've talked about it before.
Yeah, like I said, man, if my
Like-
father would not have died, I would have not have been a Star Wars fan. I simply would.
I don't know. I feel like you would have, but it wouldn't have been the same.
You know,
You
I wouldn't have spent $400 at the toy show. Thank you, Dad. I wouldn't be surrounded by things. Rich, you're a therapist. You know how this works.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, what if George Lucas said he's going to make 7, 8, 9, and he did it right then and there?
Oh man.
I don't believe I would have been in this state of fandom funk and depression where I would have been like, I need my next Star Wars fanboy high,
Yeah.
which caused me to make the first documentary.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different elements, man. Like I said, I love the butterfly effect, the story, the meaning behind it. And I think that really plays out in my Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
You know?
And just another thing, because I know you used some footage from The Force Among Us within this movie.
Yes.
And one of those scenes is, I think it's the scene with your mom, and she breaks down. What was it like to include that moment? Well, I mean, what do you think was going on in that moment? You know,
it's funny because that was filmed when we shot the first one.
Yeah.
As you guys know from the last episode. But the documentary, the footage on the hard drive ended up taking a shit after we pulled that footage
Okay.
of my mom.
Yeah.
And that moment that my mom and I had on the set in December of 2006 for the first film,
Yeah.
is really what The Force Within Us is all about.
Yeah. It's sort of, do you think that prompted it? Or, you know?
It didn't prompt it. It was always there,
Okay.
but it just wasn't utilized by Frankie and Freddie in the first film. But it was almost like you got to make the first film, and then you got to say, hey, you know what? We got to tell the real story.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I can get that.
And after the hard drive literally crapped out, like there's so much stuff from Norway that was lost.
Yeah.
I still have the hard drive, but nobody could recover it.
Well,
The fact that I was able to pull that footage of my mom breaking down on set
yeah.
and using that for the first film,
Yeah.
using that for the second film that we recorded for the first film, it's even more priceless.
Yeah.
And more precious footage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
knowing it's.
I think it's the essence of that. And I think by the time you get to that part in The Force Within Us,
Yeah.
I think you start going to Northern California at that point.
Yeah.
And saying, hey,
I
you know
think
what?
so.
This was a big part of my life.
But here I am.
But here I am now.
Yeah.
Yes, here I am now. I'm moving on. This is what I'm doing as a
Yeah.
fan. You know,
what was the most emotional part of the process? There's got to be so many ups and downs with this, so many different stories. You know.
oh man, it's you know, the up is that it was made, and then I'm happy with it. 9 years later, I'm still happy with it. You know, this is a little bit of a confession, but it's not a surprise. There was not 1 ounce of coffee or beer or wine that was not consumed in the editing process.
I thought you were gonna say the other.
No,
I
I sat down, I put Miles Davis on in the background, and I watched the footage, and I cut the film, you know, on paper with either coffee or wine or beer, and I felt so comfortable with it. the ups and downs. I think the up too is that I still love the second film.
Yeah.
I like the first film. I'm like, you know what? If the Force Among Us was lost forever, it would be okay. I don't know. Would it be okay? I don't know. But I think it was a big. It was fun. It was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun, and I think the down part of it was probably the challenging part of it was in California. When I had to move everybody inside, but
get the crew out and working with what you got.
Yeah, I think a downside too is like I wish the real fans of the saga was half as easy as the Force Within Us was. Like the Force Within Us was it was easy.
Yeah,
it was an easy project. The process was so easy. It was so nice and convenient. I would say I got a little aggravated with Ian a little bit because I was spending a lot of time on it, and I paid Ian for it. But Ian was like, "Hey, I got to go back to work. I got to go back to work." So Dennis, if you guys get a chance, watch Dennis's Machtails YouTube episode from last year. We talked a little bit more about this. But I don't know, ups and downs. There are definitely more ups and downs for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just like I've never been to a Star Wars filming location site. But what has it been like to go there with your wife and to walk through the forest?
Having my wife with me on this trip.
Yeah. Did she go to Arizona? We got the picture up.
No,
just
she did not go to Arizona.
Yeah.
I went without her there. That was there's a story. Carl
Cunningham. Yeah, I had questions
Cunningham
about that.
and Adam. Yeah. But having my wife with me was great. I think overall it was more like when I first met her, I'm like, "Hey, I made a documentary," and she's like, "Oh, really?" Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm making a documentary. You want to come with me?" So it was I don't know. It was fun to have her with because, like I said, when I went to Norway, my ex-wife didn't go with me, but going to Northern California. And then when me and Michelle first met, we went to Northern California. We stayed at the Ship Ashore in 2008.
Really? Wow.
So it was our second time there, which was really, really cool. Because we went out there, I'm like, "Yeah, let's go out here. This is where Star Wars Return of the Jedi was filmed." But so I already went there the first time.
Okay,
Which again, it's a story that I really don't share, really, you know. But it was my second time there. But I knew more filming locations, a little bit more because of Adam and Carl. And Adam and Carl, I found them because they had released a filming location book, which, by the way, do not go on that alone because there's a lot of inaccuracies on that. Now, I will thank them for telling me about Kickstarter.
Okay.
And I said, "Hey, you guys did this book.
Yeah.
Can I shoot you out here?" And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely." Yeah. And they were out there. They met us out there. Northern California, Ian, Michelle, myself, it was a special moment.
Yeah.
But I will tell you the most emotional moment that I ever had, it was probably in Norway, wrapping there.
Yeah.
That was heavy shit.
Yeah.
I don't know why, it was my sister's birthday. She was getting on a train that day.
Yeah.
You're
more isolated.
Yeah. I mean, this is very isolated as well, but
you don't got to take a plane and then a train.
Yeah, right. And my sister left the scene before I did. Like we kind of all left there together.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It was different but the same. Now you do ask me, I take my dad out of the process.
Yeah.
If you take the Star Wars filming locations out of my documentaries, I feel like you have half a movie. Because I feel like people really love the filming locations.
I think they do. I think you heavily advertise it in the first one.
Yes.
And then you don't heavily advertise it in Force Within Us.
You know why? Because I was burnt out. I promoted the first film for 6 years. 6 years. Yeah. Now, this is a cool photo, right? So this is one of the things left by Norman Reynolds, who I want to say Norman, if he wasn't a producer, I should know this, he was very involved in the production of it, being there on set, and he left this there. Now, this is not the exact same thing that Chewie grabbed, but very, very close
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
It's almost like one of the 3 props that they used.
Yeah, they shot probably all 3 scenes, and then they're like, "What looks best?"
Yes, yes. And the crazy thing is that with these guys here, this was no different than the people in the third world country of Tunisia
Yeah.
running out with props from the movie set from 1976.
No, this is happening in California.
It's the same shit. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, we're going to leave this here for you guys because you guys worked on the film. We want to leave a little piece of history. Here's a rain jacket. Here's a ass with the mouth in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what is that?
You know, yeah, it's pretty much like an ass of an animal with the mouth in the middle of it. But it was, I don't know. And you know what? It was nostalgic too, because I felt like
Yeah.
I was having a Tunisian experience, but stateside
Yeah.
in Northern California.
Felt a little safer, maybe.
A little
know.
safe.
It's safer.
Yeah, for sure safer.
Safer in
safer.
terms of wildlife. I mean, you
For
got
sure. Well, and what-
spiders and all sorts of random things.
Yes, for sure.
And did you I guess did the people I'm just gonna call them the Redwood Forest people.
That's fair enough.
Did they ever see this movie, or did you send them copies?
You know what? I think they did.
Yeah.
Did I send it? That's a good question. Now, there are some people that had the Ewok Rock
Yeah.
at the Fort Dick Market, and I call them on the phone, and I'm like, "Hey, I got to send you the film. Where do I
Yeah.
send it to?" And nobody ever said anything. So if they saw it,
Yeah.
which I sent them, I'm pretty sure I sent all them copies.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I sent all them copies. I didn't want to make them buy a copy. I would have sent it to them.
No, yeah.
But I never heard back. Like, you know, that's the thing about the filmmaking, you know. You always get the negative reviews, but people don't say, hey, you know what, that was great. Thanks for making me a part of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I know there's probably a lot of stories, a lot of film that ended up on the cutting room floor. You talked about the bartender earlier. What's the best story you heard that didn't make it into the movie? If you're allowed to share that.
Well, yeah, probably. I think the bartender for sure.
Talking about Carrie doing coke in a
Yeah. Yeah, and there were probably, I think you talked about some little people with some prostitutes. You know, and I'm like, hey, we got to get this shit rolling. You know, we got to film it. Oh, absolutely not. I think the bartender at the ship ashore was probably the fish that got away, but if we put the pole in the water, he would have taken he would have taken off.
And if you haven't watched the film all the way through, definitely watch past the credits because there's a nice
there is some good shit in there. Now,
Yeah.
I will say the funny thing is, speaking about bad reviews, I had read a bad review. About The Force Within Us, and it said, man, the people that edited this film were really in love with their own footage. And you know what? When you make a film and you edit it, now Frankie told me not to edit it. He said, you're not coming to your editing room. But I edited this one. This one, like, it was really hard to cut shit down.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I mean, it's like, there's a lot of good substance and a lot of good meat. Now, the one thing that I do, see, now the memory's coming back. This is good shit. The one thing that I do regret putting in was Ian was filming me in the car.
Yeah.
He followed me around.
Were you going to Death Valley? Or
we're actually going to Dave Dorman's.
Dave Dorman's. Okay.
And he goes, hey, what do you think about George Lucas making 7, 8, 9?
Yeah.
And I had said, I never put it in the finished film.
Yeah.
But I said, George is going to make a 7, 8, 9. Well, George didn't make a 7, 8, 9, but Disney did.
Yeah.
And this is the ship ashore right here. This is
Really?
this is the glorious ship ashore right here. So I think the one thing that I regret not putting in the film was my prophecy of calling out 7, 8, 9. Because I knew it was going to happen. Because of Rick McCallum saying the rate that George is spending money, there's going to be a 7, 8, 9. I think the answer, what ended up on the cutting room floor, that was good shit. That would have been a good way to end the film, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about people sending you bad reviews and stuff. I think it takes some guts to be an indie filmmaker I would categorize your films as indie.
Yes, they're indie. They're not fan
indie-
films, but they're indie films.
Yeah, they're in that same realm, you know.
Yes.
Smaller audiences. What judgments have you received from people? What criticisms? You know, are people proud of you? Or they when you go to a party and you're like, oh yeah, you know, I've made these films.
Well, today I was at the toy show.
Yeah.
Right, and this guy comes in from. This is a cool photo. This is actually the back side of the ship ashore.
Okay.
Right on the water. You know, when you think of Return of the Jedi, you don't think of that.
No, not at all.
You know, but it's Smith River. You know, it's right on the river. Yeah. So I'm at the toy show today, and this guy from down in Florida that's been trying to meet up with me, he goes, "Hey, man, you're Chris. I can tell your voice." And he's like, "Man, I love your films. I love Machtails." See, when people come up to me and they say that they love my work, and it's just, you know what? I feel like it's Patreon members wanting to pay for the content. It feels like I have stuff out there that I do for fun.
Yeah.
But people want to indulge in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I mean, we feed off each other's energy, and
absolutely.
Definitely have energy.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know.
Yeah. And the one thing that I got to talk about with you is interviewing Jeremy Bullock. You know, we lost him last year. Everyone talks about him as a great fan ambassador, and just what was that process like? How did you get hooked up with him? Did you walk up to him at Celebration?
Well, no, you know what? This is a really, really good story. This is some deep dive behind the scenes kind of shit. So when I went to Celebration 5, it was kind of hard for me because I just came off this big high from promoting and being a VIP guest, having panels at Celebration 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I gotta kind of go in like with something.
Yeah.
I just can't go back to like 1999 fan. So I reached out to all these vendors on the Celebration page, and I got turned down by so many people. I'm like, hey, I made The Force Among Us. I want to sell some movies at the table. These guys from Orlando, CMI Toys, Jack and Eddie, who I'm still friends with today, they put me up at their booth, gave me their pass, and just treated me very kindly. So when I went back to Orlando, I was at their booth again, taking pre-orders for The Force Within Us. Jack is very familiar with the convention circuit.
Yeah.
He's known a lot of people. He made the Robert Watts interview happen.
Yeah.
He made the Jeremy Bullock interview happen. Now, a lot of people don't know this. This is maybe bonus features in The Force Within Us, which you can still get if you PM me on Facebook. I still have a small handful of copies left. They're related.
Wait, Jeremy Bullock and Robert Watts?
Yeah. They're brother-in-laws.
Oh, wow.
You know, they're family. Like Jeremy's sister is Robert Wife's wife. Huh. You know, and I kind of learned this, and I didn't put this in the documentary because I didn't feel like it was necessarily relevant.
Yeah, and how do you spell that out?
You know, and the one guy that was in Twilight, one of the main actors, Robert Watts lives in his house. So there was like some crazy stories that just were cool to know as a fan.
Yeah.
But they weren't relevant to The Force Within Us. Yeah. You know? But yeah, so interviewing Jeremy, and the thing about Jeremy Bullock is he was one of the first celebrities I ever met. And I always thought, like, because I met him so many times, I had drinks with him.
Yeah.
I'm like,
got the photo with him.
Jeremy, remember me? And oh yeah, I remember. He always, oh yeah, I remember you. Do you really remember that? He's just being a nice guy. Yeah. But then when he said, yeah, I'll do an interview with you, you know, and after he passed away, he passed away last year. Yeah. The fact that I have an interview with him. Yeah. In The Force Within Us.
And the interview setting is probably one of the best Jeremy Bullock interview settings out there because it's just Jeremy on the floor.
Yeah, and it happened.
That's how he lived.
Yes, you know that's how he lived. Yes. Yeah. And the thing is, too, is, you know, the CMI toy guys, they had vendor passes.
Yeah.
So they were there before anybody else was there.
Okay.
So we got there really
When
early.
it was
So
quiet.
here's another behind the scenes deep dive story.
Yeah.
So I get there. Jack's on the phone. He's like, "Hey, Jeremy's here. He's waiting for you. And I'm like, "Oh shit, I don't want anybody waiting for me. I waited for Ashley Eckstein, but I don't want Jeremy waiting for me."
No.
So Ian Basic is getting out of the car. I pull away, and he slaps the car with his hand. He goes, "The fucking camera's in the car."
Oh no!
So I slammed the brakes. I mean, it was panic mode. It was panic mode filming Jeremy because I knew he was there waiting for us.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose him. But filming him again, he was the first celebrity I met. I had drinks with him one night. I had dinner with him another night. I just, out of all the celebrities that I've met, I feel like I had a personal connection with him.
Yeah.
But if he remembered that when I was interviewing him, I don't know, but he still gave me the interview.
That's a great story with Ian slapping the car.
Yeah, it was great. I could still hear him. I could still feel him. Hear him
and
slapping the car.
And I could be wrong, but you guys stopped off at Vegas at one point.
Yeah, we stopped off at Vegas on the way to Death Valley.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I never went to Vegas in my life. I was there with Michelle a month before. So I come back a month later. I don't know if you guys know Vegas hotels. There's a place called Circus. It used to be the shit, like in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I book us a room at the well, it's a shithole hotel now, but listen to this. I book us at a room at Circus that is like in the old Circus, which is like 5 parking lots away from the actual casino. Circus. And it was funny because I'm like, yeah, we're going to Vegas, baby. And then we end up like in the shady ass part of Circus Hotel. Oh my God, it was so funny. We still joke about that today. It was just one of those things like, we're gonna live the high life.
Supposed to be in the bed.
Yeah. No, we're not. It was one of those things.
Yeah, and man, I just feel like what do these movies mean to you now that you've made 2 of them? One, sometimes you hate it, sometimes you don't. The other, you seem to be pretty happy with it.
Well, you know what they mean to me is their accomplishments.
Yeah.
And I can show my daughter The Force Within Us. What it means to me, though, as a filmmaker, is I need to finish The Real Fans of the Saga. I got 3 documentaries under my belt. I recorded a bunch of stuff for the Toys R Us documentary, and that never became anything. And I don't want to abandon that, like, I think that's the thing as an independent filmmaker, you film stuff, but you have to get back to it.
Yeah.
George Lucas said something about that. Film projects are never finished; they're just abandoned. I believe. I don't want to abandon any of my projects. It's just taken me a long time to do.
Just like George.
Just like George, which again, he's an inspiration. But I will say that the thing about independent filmmaking is I got these documentaries like right off the bat. Like the Force Among Us, Frankie, it was under the guidance of him. It would never have been completed if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
He knew, like, hey, stay out of the editing room. We're going to do this. We're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Force Within Us was 6 months of aggravation. 6 years of aggravation. Not 6 months, 6 years of aggravation.
Yeah.
And I got that one done. Then I'm like, I want to make another one. Okay, Ian's like, no more Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I want to do something different. I'm like, okay, Walking Dead. So we did the Walking Dead one, and we got that one done. And then I'm like, let's go back to Star Wars. But my wife watches a lot of reality TV, and let's try to do that. And that kept me awake last week.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
I got it's not done.
Yeah, I gotta get this fucking thing done, for Christ's sake.
I mean, all the patron supporters, people who've seen the unedited or
yes.
It's a great. That's a top tier show. So
I mean, it's just I gotta. Do I have fear of rap? I don't know, but it's gotta be done at some point.
Oh yeah.
So and again, I think The Force Within Us, at the end of the day, why I'm making the films is really all with that film.
Yeah.
Encompasses, if that's the right word I want to use. I mean, that film is what I've been trying to do and I'm still trying to do shit, after that,
Yeah. Yeah. And before we start wrapping up here, I just gotta say, become a Machtails supporter, Patreon supporter.
No, you guys, I know
Yeah.
you guys don't want to go to the 1138 chat because you're here right now, and you guys are always hanging out with me. But are you guys happy with the content?
Yes.
Are you happy with the content?
I love the content. Man.
So
I get to see. I see your collection all the time, but I get to see it in a more intimate setting.
yes, and that's what the Wampa Cave segment's about. And John, you made a comment. I'm trying to think. The comment that he made earlier was like, when is it going to end? And I'm like, I don't think it's ever going to end, but it's got to end at some point, because if it doesn't end, how the hell am I going to finish the Real Fans of the Saga?
You only got so much time.
If we have to keep paying in, we'll support.
We will keep.
I want you to
So,
finish that.
hey, speaking about that, now you got a golden question in there?
I got one more question.
Okay.
And I gotta say, everyone, before I ask this question,
Yes.
everyone, Rancho Obi-Wan had their virtual gala yesterday. Go out, support Rancho Obi-Wan.
Yes, go support Rancho Obi-Wan.
And this question somewhat relates to that, and it's probably a really bad question to end on. But,
Well,
but
we're going to end on the name draw. So.
We'll end on the name drop. But how do you feel about having Carl Cunningham in this film? And would you ever consider re-releasing and sort of editing his name out?
That is a great question. Okay, as you may not know, or you may know, Carl is a thief.
Yes.
Carl had stolen a lot from Philip Wise, who was Philip Wise was never in the documentaries, but he was always a big supporter of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he stole a shit ton from Stephen Sansweet. I felt so bad of having him in the film after the fact, kind of like having Jeremy and my mom breaking down. Like that was like, oh, I'm glad I got this.
Yeah, yeah.
And then now time has passed, and it's like, man, I got Carl Cunningham in the film. He's a fucking thief. You know what? I think Jimmy Mack was the one that had told me to just fucking leave him in there. Leave him in there. And if I release it without Carl, I probably can, but I got to sell out of the first print first.
Well, it's one of the only places, like, I know the name Carl Cunningham, but I can't put a face to the name unless I go to the Force Within Us. And then I'm like, that's the
fucking guy.
That's the guy.
Well, now here's the weird thing. Now, Rich, you came in for the premiere. Carl came in for the premiere with Adam and the chick that was in the desert with us.
Yeah.
And I had a gut feeling that I could not have Carl Cunningham stay in my house.
No. Yeah.
You know, like, John, you're staying tonight. I trust you.
Yeah.
I know where you live. I'll find out where you live. But like with Carl Cunningham, I'm like, you know what? Something just rubbing me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's not really my style.
Mm-hmm.
But I trusted my gut. And then years later, when I found out that he was a thief, I'm like, oh, fuck, man. He would have stolen so much shit from me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he did steal my hotel now.
Really?
Yeah. That story is on Inside the Vault. So you guys got to tune in to Patreon 1138, happy hour and a beer and some deep dive into the behind the scenes of that. But hey, speaking about Patreon, Tyler, I'm going to have you draw the name tonight.
All right.
And if you draw your own name,
it's not going to be.
It's not rigged.
Yeah. Well, it's not. I won't go to me.
Okay, now you got to be tuning in live for this. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Going once.
Wait.
Oh, no, you know what?
Patreon.
Those are the drinking words. The drinking word was friend. We'll make the drinking word Patreon. So do a chug and a chew. All right, here we go. We got it out of the Vader pail here.
Right.
The Vader treat bucket.
We've got Kurt H.
Kurt Holman. Producer Kurt Holman.
As I knock the table over.
Oh, the beer didn't spill. Kurt Holman, are you watching the show tonight?
Kurt Holman, sound off
Kurt
in the
Holman.
comments.
Kurt Holman.
All right.
All right, don't forget we're doing a baseball show at 6:30 Central tonight. Jeff Ellis.
Jeff Ellis. Is he on the show? Is he on the baseball show?
No, Jeff is not on the baseball show. Jeff, are you watching tonight? All right, we're going to do 2 more.
All right, 2 more.
2 more. Jeff.
James Johnson.
Are you tuning in live?
I know you, buddy.
James.
Here. Sound off. All right, we
James,
got
are
one
you here?
more.
We got one more.
Chip, if you're still here, sound off.
We got one more. We got one more.
It's me.
Tyler, you've never won.
I've never won. I don't know if I should win.
No, you should win because you've never won. You've been supporting me for a long time. Tonight, you win a 501st Brandon Albert Johnson
wow.
patch. This is a Halloween
Holy
themed
shit.
patch here with Osaka Tono.
Osaka. It's Ahsoka.
Osaka. I'm thinking of sake.
Yeah.
But anyways, Albert Johnson. Check out Albert Johnson in the 501st. He's okay. I followed the Clone Wars a little bit, but I do love Ashley Eckstein, as you should too. So that's a cool patch.
This
You
is
never
amazing.
won.
This is
You know what?
amazing patch.
Yeah, I throw myself under the bus there. I pronounced Ahsoka wrong because I'm thinking of sake. But all right, Tyler, you were long overdue, man. You've been supporting the show for a long time. You never won.
I never won.
You never won. You deserve that. I should have given it. So, all right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for taking a look back at The Force Within Us. If you want a copy of The Force Within Us, PM me on Facebook before you drop the coin on Amazon. You'll get it from me, the real deal. And maybe, just maybe, I'll have Ashley Eckstein sign it for you. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe. Hey, Ashley, I got 20 DVDs I need you to sign. So, all right, guys, cheers. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time on Machtails from the Cantina. So long, everybody. Chut, chut, and choo-choo, boyos.